Saeeda, thank you so much for coming today. This was totally impromptu. I always did want to sit down and talk with you, but after our election coverage that I'm gonna just say it went viral because a lot of people tuned into your election coverage. So this is why you knew so much about the election. One, you have a doctorate in English literature.
Yes, I do.
And you have a vast and profound knowledge on US history and world history. But I think it was funny for a lot of people who have lived in this country their entire life. Most of them didn't even know about the election. You broke it down in such an amazing way. I was like, let's just do a powwow today and we can break down a lot of things.
Exactly.
But how you're in my life now is that you're Lila's educator with COVID and school being virtual. You're our full-time educator. You're responsible for my child's education. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Ada. And I'm very humbled by the fact that we had an impact and were able to explain to people what was going on in terms of actual electoral college vote counts.
Yep.
And sort of the excitement of the whole thing and knowing what the historic precedents were. So it was really an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad we reached out the way we did.
I had always watched election coverage and knew that things were exciting, and I saw the blue and red on the map. But I actually, and this is so embarrassing, but I didn't know really about which state got, I didn't even understand really the electoral college.
That's right, that's right.
So it was just incredible. So I wanted to start from the beginning. Where were you born? Where do you come from? And tell us just like a little bit about your, what did you just?
I was tricultural. I mentioned I was tricultural. So I was born in Karachi in Sindh, which is now a province in Pakistan.
Okay.
But my heritage is Punjabi, and I have relatives on both sides of the border, including in Kashmir. I was sent as a child abroad to study abroad, so I had an English
You're talking to me.
A boarding school background. And then when I was a teenager, I came here. So I think when you have three very different perspectives as you're growing up, and it's during your formative years, I think you then you see the world through three different prisms.
Yeah.
And you kind of code switch all the time between those three worlds because they're quite distinct in their own way.
Right, so three different lenses.
That's right, that's right. And another lens, which is three different languages, which would be Urdu, Hindi, and Punjabi. So that gives you an...
And do you speak any other languages outside of those three?
No, I speak English badly. Other than that,
So
no,
four languages.
4 languages, yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
I think when I found this out about you, I was super excited. So I think listeners or viewers will be excited to know that you grew up almost in like a royal household, or was it royal?
Well, I grew up on my mother's side. My mother was a Kashmiri Pandit, and her lineage is royal.
What does that mean?
So in India, there's a caste system.
Right.
And then within the caste system, the Brahmins are at the very top. And then just to give you an idea as to what I see as how unfair it is, among the Brahmins, there are 4 classes of Brahmins, and one of the highest classes of Brahmins.
So there's like rich and then rich 4.0? Okay.
Well,
I'm down.
But also it's lineage. It's what is one's background. So in other words.
So like for an example, if I was calling an Indian matchmaker, I would say I want what was that word? The caste, at the
so I would
Sindh?
But now because I'm half Muslim, it wouldn't be a Brahmin.
Oh right.
But if I were a full Hindu,
the Brahmin. I want a Brahmin 4.0 is what I would say to my matchmaker.
Yeah, and I would run away to America as soon as I could.
Oh, it's not a good sitch. Okay.
Only because of the expectations of that role.
Of course. So much like...
Which, you know, people that come from Orthodox backgrounds, for example, they know what that feels like.
Yep.
But it's a very, very prescribed world.
Right.
And there are only certain things that women can do and some things that are absolutely verboten.
Right. Okay, I interrupted you. So it was a very opulent, Sort of. I mean, did you live in a palace?
It was a background of great privilege based on the fact that we were landowners.
Okay.
And so a little bit of land was 24,000 acres.
My God.
And so then the people that we associated with, for example, were also sort of from princely households.
Got it.
In the case of Sindh, it would have been the Talpur family who were the rulers of Sindh before the British took over.
I mean,
so but I have to tell you one thing. When you say royal, I have to explain something here. It was our parents and the parents that I would encounter had such a sense of stewardship that even though they came from these huge landowning backgrounds and had a huge amount of, quote unquote, money,
right,
their fathers forced them to get professions.
Wow.
So in the case of my father, he is one of the first Indians to be sent to Cambridge University to get a master's in history at a time when 0.1% of Indians completed high school.
Whoa.
So the emphasis was not, yes, you had all of this, but what was drummed into you before you had any rights, you were constantly reminded of your duties.
So I think I certainly, that resonates with me, and I know like a lot of my viewers and community come from really strict backgrounds, and that feeling of that you have a duty and obligation, that you are not for yourself in a way.
That's right.
Your life is not for yourself.
Exactly.
So you grew up in and maybe that was one of the reasons that...
in spite of all that opulence, if you weren't up by 7 in the morning and your bed wasn't made, even though there was help and servants to make the bed, it was a sign of your character that you were responsible for making your own
By the way,
bed.
that should be now. Here now, that's a sign of character. You got to make your bed.
But
101.
And one other thing I wanted to say, it was a milieu that completely followed what the British did.
Right. Okay. So let me get to these. So amazing. How does and then your life took, you ended up in America.
That's
right.
So
how long were you in India for? Till what age?
So I actually, India and Pakistan up till the age of 15, 14 and a half, 15.
What happened at 15?
And then something quite remarkable happened. My eldest brother was the second international student at UCLA.
What?
This is 1959. He falls in love with an Irish-American lady. They come to meet me. Now, I lost my mother when I was 4, and my father when I was 4 months short of my 7th birthday.
Wow.
And so I was raised by extended family.
Yeah.
But then this brother comes from, of all places, 1972, from Los Angeles with this gorgeous, beautiful wife whose picture you've seen.
Yes.
And they decide that they are going to adopt me. So I had the privilege of coming here as a first preference immigrant. And I had no idea till I was much older what a gift I had been given in this.
So now, I guess, and pardon my ignorance, I guess it's the end goal really for someone growing up in India would be to end up somewhere like, I guess.
Well, for a woman of a certain background, it would simply be marriage.
Right.
It would simply be marriage.
Right, marriage is the only...
And marriage, even now, you would be shocked with the extent to which, as a role for women, that is not only imposed, but it's held to. So, for example, a woman can have the most horrible marriage, get a divorce, but somehow she's seen as responsible for the divorce. So there's a tremendous double standard that exists in the subcontinent when it comes to women.
Huge. So, okay, at 15 you come here.
So then I came here, and my sister-in-law got me into LA Valley College.
Okay.
And oddly enough, that year I joined the debate team at Valley College, and the following year, 1974, Los Angeles Valley College won the national
of course it did.
Debate. A community college won against places like Harvard, Yale,
Are you serious?
MIT.
You were like
So
their
I was-
debate squad leader.
I was the debate squad
You were
leader.
chair captain
So
for debate.
I have a big background in public speaking, and I've shown you pictures from India, my
Yeah.
public speaking trophies and stuff
Yeah.
like that as well, and Pakistan as well. So, all of that, I think, but I think part of it, when you learn how to present yourself, is that the type of background that I came from, if you were at a party, you had to be talking sense. So you couldn't just...
What a novel concept, Saeeda, to go to a party and have to talk.
You would have to explain
sense.
political stuff, or
Right.
you would have to, somebody would say, well, what do you think of this?
Right.
And you had to have an opinion.
Right. And to have an opinion, you'd have to know something.
And in my time, if I said to my elders, I'm bored, they would kind of look at you and they would go, well, dear, only boring people are bored.
Right.
So then we were
Right.
thrown into ourselves to find stuff.
So did you ever end up working in, like, did you take this love of literature and
Absolutely.
and did
I never was on the faculty side, but I had a 30-year career in academe. And I worked in LA. I worked at a place called Woodbury University, which is one of the design schools. I worked at UCLA. I worked for a time at USC. I worked for almost 15 years at a place called Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa as director of international programs. But I never taught. And you know how this is one of the things where you think to yourself, what if I had gone that route?
Yeah.
Which is why teaching Lila is such a joy.
Yeah. So that's where many people, it was kind of crazy how you came into my life. We won't get into all of it, but we ended up working together for a bit.
That's right.
And I had always known that you had this incredible, vast amount of knowledge on so many topics, not even just history. And I was always attracted to that. And I knew you had to stay in our lives, and I didn't. But we weren't always sure in what capacity.
Right.
But when COVID hit,
yes,
and I took one look at the situation of what children are being asked to do and learn virtually, and I thought to myself, and I'm saying this with totally understanding that there's not a Saeeda available to everyone, so I don't want to. I'm like #blessed, but it was truly a blessing. But I knew that I was going to need help with educating Lila this year. And then you happened to be available.
Oh my God.
And came into our lives. And I think it's so obvious to anyone who watches my life day to day or drops in, what a profound impact you're having on not just Lila, but my whole family. And being able, the fact that we get to have all of this experience and knowledge and education, it feels like a dream come true.
Wow.
So I just want to, I've seen you personally through many ups and downs.
Yes, absolutely.
I wouldn't even say high highs. I would say there was a lot of lows when I met you. Now there have been some high highs. I wonder what it's like for somebody who comes from a background you did and then have seen extremely tough times.
Exactly. And I don't think it happens to everybody. It doesn't matter where your background is, because fate is such that at least twice in your life, you're going to get a major drubbing. And in my case, it was a marriage in which I had trusted, I had loved, and I had given every last bit of myself to this individual through illness, and then found myself basically left with nothing at the end of that. And for a woman to discover betrayal, which can happen, within a woman's family, or it can happen through a relationship, what that does is it profoundly makes you question everything that you've been taught up to a certain point. Because if fidelity is the point of marriage, then, my God, what was I in? What was I? how could I have been that blind?
So you found out only about your husband's past after
he was gone.
Yeah.
And that then is a point in life where one of the worst things you can experience is you're going through grief, but you're going through equal parts rage.
Yeah.
And that happens in divorce, that happens in death if there is a discovery that, look, this was not what it appeared to be.
Right.
And what that does is you are then the mad woman on the hill screaming your rage to the world that how could this have happened to you? And I always think of a wonderful cartoon, which is Hagar. Remember Hagar used to be this Viking?
He was like, yes.
That's right.
Oh my God.
So Hagar's boat has just been wrecked on these rocks. And then he looks up and there's lightning, and then he looks at the water and there's sharks circling around him. And he says to God, why me? And the answer comes back, why not? So the lesson from that drubbing is, you can be born in a palace, you can be born with everything on the planet, you can be born in the best family in the world, but you will have at some point the universal experience of betrayal.
Yeah.
Now, when that happens, most people do one or two things.
Yeah.
One, I'm going to just sit down with a bottle of wine and consume one every night.
Yeah.
That could be one way.
That's the me part of it.
The other thing is, I think I'm just going to basically think nothing like that ever happened.
Wait, there's also the group that immediately changes their status on Facebook.
Yeah.
Were you one of those?
But no, because in my generation that wasn't...
Right, but it was in the Facebook.
No, because I've never put anything really important on Facebook.
Okay, but you're of the Facebook generation. You use it.
Yeah, but still, you know, not the same way.
I just want to say, that's a very major millennial thing. When they have rage, they immediately change their Facebook status.
Well, but it's a way of also being able to control things then.
Totally.
And that makes perfect sense.
So...
So that was, and then there was also the case of, all right, so now youth is gone, right? That's something that, so you're not at the very top of your profession because you left your profession to take care of certain things at home.
Yep.
And then you discovered a great big mishigas.
Well, I have a question. Like, it surprises me that you gave up a lot of, like, you're such an academic. You're a woman who is entire fire, passion, and purpose from a molecular, cellular level through your family's DNA.
That's right.
Is education, the pursuit, and a career path, and yet you give it all up for some schmo bagel?
And I'll tell you what a schmo bagel does to you. A schmo bagel leaves you feeling like, really, there must have been something terribly wrong with me, because your first impulse is, A, how was I so blind? And B,
that is my first
how could I, the feelings are so intense that you have to be able to process them. And the processing is where, on a daily basis, you will wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, what the actual F happened over here?
Yeah.
And, and what it does is, it causes you then to say, am I such a bad judge of character that while this was happening, I wasn't aware of what it was?
Well, do you think, and you know my theory about this with you, and I think so many intellectuals, I always feel that they're like, you need many different souls, many different roles on this earth, and you have, right, like your coders and your engineers and your architects. There is, and it used to be a real thing, the scholars.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I consider you, if I had to give you a title for this generation, you're a scholar. Unfortunately, though, there's not.
You see, and the overculture is not looking for that at all.
What do you, when you say you use this word overculture?
When I say the overculture, I'm looking, for example, at who influences young children now. Girls are on TikTok.
Yeah.
There are particular messages that are being given. Everything that they're being told is external. I think what saved me through the despair was, A, the ability to go back and read.
Okay.
And I've said this to you many times, that great line from Camus where he says, in the midst of winter, I discovered there existed within me an invincible summer.
Is that through like his...
That is hard won, because you go back and forth for about 5 years after the betrayal has happened, saying to yourself, you're literally bereft. You have no context in which to put what has happened.
Right.
Now, to give you an idea, when I came to the United States, for the next 30 years, my income went up 12,000%. If I look at my
12,000.
12,000, I mean, that was the trajectory of from when my first job to when my last job that was of consequence. So, so, you know, there will be a time where the world wants your gift, but there will also be times when the old adage, it's not like one door closes and the other opens. Sometimes when one door closes, all the other ones bang shut as well.
Yes.
And being able to get yourself through that is what makes you.
And for you, it was reading.
And for me, it was reading, writing it all out, because that was one way of purging it and trying to make sense of it. But the beauty of life, Adele, is that no matter how great the sorrow, and this is true of people that have gone through the Holocaust.
Yeah.
This is true of people that have had horrible experiences in war, that after sorrow, there's a reconciliation where the choice is simple. Am I now going to say goodbye to the world? Or am I going to turn around and face it and do my best? And I still get emotional thinking about it.
Well,
but it's
should, because
a
you're somebody that actually has. You're somebody that has done that, because I've seen you in the depths of despair.
Exactly. But somehow still a Pollyanna, even in the midst.
And that was the thing and that's the thing I don't understand, because you did always have this Pollyanna type, even when faced with unimaginable things. And often when people have that disposition, we think that they're dumb.
No.
But you were somebody who has such a deep understanding, and still in horrible moments were able to have this positive disposition. So
that's right.
What is,
that's right.
Are you born with that?
I'll tell you why. When you face disaster, and this is something that comes from the Buddha. This guy goes to the Buddha and he says, "You won't believe the pain I feel." And the Buddha says, "Is there anybody in the world that you know that hasn't experienced pain?" And then the message that the Buddha gives is, all life is sorrow. Why is it sorrow? It's based on constant change. It's based on not knowing when the change is good or bad. But the second Buddhist saying is, but you must joyfully participate in the sorrow.
Yeah. I love that you
cannot be sorrowful in the sorrow. You must joyfully now.
Right.
Your first duty, your first thing you know about the world is sorrow.
Yeah.
But the other is
you gotta like that sorrow.
Joyfully now there are days.
Like that sorrow.
There are days when you're going to go, holy Toledo!
Right.
I am not participating in this sorrow. I think I'm staying in my jammies, in my bed. I am not going anywhere.
But maybe you need to do that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
it's a good
what I'm
combination.
saying is that the overall feeling has to be that no matter what has happened, you know, you've got to go on living no matter how many skies have fallen on you.
So, do you think
that's the message? I think for women.
I agree.
Because,
but I want to, and I know you're not going to want to talk about this. But do you feel that maybe I want to word this so carefully because I don't want to sound callous. But is it inevitable if you like someone who doesn't have parents or is orphaned?
Yes.
It's going to be very hard to make healthy decisions about a partner who you choose to love, right? I mean, or do you think?
No, because I think even though my parents had passed away,
right,
my guardian, when he came into my life, which was within a couple of years of my father's death,
right,
completely gave me a sense of wholeness. And furthered my intellectual development.
So you had it like a guardian angel.
That's right. But he would also say the same thing that God says to Hagar, which is the world does not owe you a living. It will constantly upend you. The question is, so the thing is, if you're going to fall down 20 times, be prepared to stand up 21 times.
Right.
Because without that 21st effort,
Yeah.
you're done.
Well,
You're done.
yeah. I see you as our like you came into our life as a guardian angel.
Oh.
So I think it's very karmic.
It's very
and I know
moving
you
that you say that.
But you love karma. So I do
hope
feel like
so.
it's...
I hope so. And I
Yeah.
hope that what I can impart to Lila is what was given to me.
Yeah.
And do you see what I mean about the strength that then is imparted?
Yeah.
Is that, okay, you're having a bad day, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. Are you going to let the whole thing subsume you?
It's not all peaches and cream. I think sometimes I've felt that some of this endless quest for knowledge and brilliant mind has gotten you into trouble.
Hmm?
And I have called you an absent-minded professor.
Yes, yes.
So, is that...
I wanted to say, it's interesting you say that, because I have used intellect as a way of holding stuff back.
Yeah.
But when I think of it, better that than hitting the bottle or becoming a meth addict or deciding that some other.
Right.
So in the grand scheme of things, as addictions go,
overreading is just not
it's
a thing.
okay. It's all right. But
Right.
what I'm trying to emphasize is that no matter what is in one's mind, the experience of betrayal, what that does is it changes you profoundly.
Right.
And every woman has what I call a UBT. Your UBT is your universal bullshit translator, all right? And when you have an experience where you've had to deal with really, heart, gut-wrenching stuff, your UBT wouldn't switch on for 30 years, and you were so in this, idea of how everything was innocent and wonderful and blah, 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 blah. Now, having been through that experience, your UBT then isn't pinging every 5 years.
Right.
It pings in 5 seconds.
Of course.
So the experience somehow makes you sharper.
Right. Some people's UBT is a buzz even...
And it's all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're very lucky because UBT is really a woman's intuition.
Yeah, but that's sort of what I was saying.
And we override it
I
all
feel
the
like
time.
you have been so on this quest of knowledge, and that you sometimes were missing the real life stuff.
Yeah. But
the cues, the signals.
But it was also a way of saying that for this period of time, I am not going to engage in the world.
Right.
It was a way of keeping oneself safe.
Yeah. I don't want to ask you that.
You can ask.
Okay. So how you got reintroduced into our lives was when you had lost your home, your living situation.
Exactly.
And things had become pretty desperate for you. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Absolutely. I was so bereft and so upset by everything that had happened that there were entire days where I felt internally I was completely numb.
Yeah.
And that the only way to survive was literally like if somebody in a concentration camp, you had to make it to the next hour.
Yeah.
You had to then make it then to the next hour. The next hour. Now, while mentally I'm going through all of that, as things started getting better, I was of the mind that, okay, it's been a heck of a hard hit, but I'm somehow recovering. Then what happens as things are going into the next phase? I get diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, which was the bullous pemphigoid.
That's right.
So despite me being able to hold it together on the outside, the impact on my body was horrendous. And with that came the acknowledgement that I had to do more than just be concerned about what was happening over here.
Yeah.
It is.
So there was like a snowball of things happening.
Exactly.
You had lost your living situation.
That's right.
You did not have the means to survive in a way.
I was having a very hard time with very little money.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
then
But so I think there's so many layers that like it was more than just your, you know, the husband passing. I mean,
exactly.
It started with early childhood trauma.
That's right. That's right.
Then a series of...
And then 30 years of things going wonderfully.
Yeah.
And so this is, if I were to look at the entirety of my life, I would say in the first 7 years, disaster had struck. My mother had died when I was 4, my father when I'm not yet 7, right?
And how did they pass away?
And my mother died of a heart attack and my father had leukemia.
There's so much collective trauma in this room, and I gotta talk about trauma. Okay. Okay. So it wasn't just your husband, right? You had...
It was also the loss of my career.
Yeah.
That was another, that made up my identity in great part.
So a huge death.
So basically, and then within my own family, I was confronting what I call the chicken pluckers that every woman in her life encounters, which are people that seem to confuse honest critique with cruelty.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just facing it.
It sounds like a mother-in-law.
It was like, boop, 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 boop. Is there anything else that could be, you know what I mean? So when something happens at that level, having to then get back to any amount of equilibrium means casting the chicken pluckers aside.
Yeah.
And every woman at some point in her life has to get rid of those negative influences where they're telling you they're doing it for your good, but they're not really.
Yeah.
They're using it as a criticism as you're going through some very, very hard times.
So how old were you when your career fell apart?
Oh, and you see, this is another thing. I would say 56.
Okay. And how...
And you see, another thing that happens then is you're not this youthful creature.
Yeah.
So everywhere you go, despite your education, despite your knowledge, you hear things like, well, you're overqualified, which euphemistically means they're not going to pay you anything.
Right.
Because they think you have all this experience, you're going to... So it was a loss that was so profound because it was at so many different levels.
Yeah.
And my advice to people when they're going through that is on any given day, don't sit down and make a list of everything that you did wrong. Literally put yourself minute to minute.
Yeah.
You're going to survive the next minute. You're going to survive the next 50. This is sometimes where it comes down to that.
Yeah.
It comes down to that. Because the whole world is there to give you advice. The whole world is there to say, oh, you know, there are 7 stages and you're now at stage 4.73.
Right.
And very soon you'll be at 5. None of it works like that.
Right.
You'll be at stage 6 and then you wake up one morning and a particular scent will put you back into stage 1.
Yes.
So how you then basically hold on to your sanity.
Yeah.
Because what is it that women feel make them? Our relationships.
Yeah. It's so true.
So the love aspect and all that was gone.
Yeah.
My career, which was something I was so proud of, was gone. My family that I thought was not so.
You made the choice not to. Did you make a choice to not have children, or was that not?
Yes, because I do have to tell you that I felt that I was the first in my line in women to have been given the choice of having children or not.
So you exercised
No woman
your right.
in my line had ever been given that choice.
Do you feel like, and that's amazing, that's important to note. Do you ever regret?
You know, I don't, because I feel like in the case of your daughter Lila, that this bright light has been, I've been told that here's a bright light, nurture it.
Yeah.
And so then all of your feelings are in a surrogate way on this child. Your a mom, grandmother, friend,
Auntie.
sister, auntie,
Yeah.
gossip person that she can complain about her friends to. This morning, that was part of our discussion.
Oh, yes. We're going to talk about that
Talking
after.
about friends that we are not always sure about. But you see, this is the thing, is that when you do get done with that horrible period,
Yeah.
what comes from it is nothing but gifts.
Yeah.
And those gifts come out of nowhere.
I've always marveled at how much like polarity there was in your life. Like
Yes.
this huge, is that disparity? No.
No, but really vast differences.
Vast differences.
That's right. That's right.
From like this
That's
state, early life was almost
and being
a
this
dream.
much wanted child,
So
then being
adored.
orphaned, and having this. But you know, there's a quantitative difference between the two experiences. When you go through trauma in childhood, you don't really know that that is what is happening.
True.
Okay, so you're sad, you're upset, but you don't have a full comprehension of what that is.
Yeah.
You know it intimately, but you have no way of articulating
Right.
it, because children don't have the ability to be able to articulate that.
You can't have thoughts if you don't have words, right? Or can't, right.
So even though you've gone through that childhood trauma, there's all of life to look forward to.
Right.
Now, when the second trauma hits after all of this wonderful stuff of 30 years, then you're on the back end of life. So now your issue is not, what am I going to do with the rest of, what am I going to be in this world? Now your thing is, what am I going to do for the rest of my life?
Right.
So trauma, depending on the time at which it happens, is very, very different.
Right.
And children are remarkably resilient.
Yeah.
In terms of their ability to, because why when a child has grief in their life, as in a case of a parent dying, a child's brain is simply not programmed to be able to hold on to grief.
Right.
Because you see it in a child's mood all the time.
Right.
1 minute it's tears, you've taken away TikTok, my life is ending, and half an hour later, I'm a happy, happy puppy because I've seen some puppies on the road that were super, super cute.
Right.
So the experience of trauma in childhood, where you have all of life to look forward to, is very different than the trauma on the back end.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people at that point say, well, you know what, I'm just giving up. There's no point. There's only this much time left.
Yeah. So then what do you, Saeeda, knowing all the things you know, having that experience, what do you tell people what's...
That to be kind to yourself before you are kind to anything else. That whatever circumstances have put on you, don't take all the blame for it. You did the best you could with what knowledge you had at that time. So you can't beat yourself up, you can't chastise yourself. So, you know, that ability to have mercy upon oneself is what redeems you. Because you are being, I had to say to myself, you know what? There's still a little girl in there.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm going to do? I may not have anybody right now, but I am going to hold my own hand.
Do you think you're living... I love that.
See?
Do you think... I say that all the time. I like to talk to my little self when I'm being mean.
About it.
It is emotional, because when you have the realization that you're just a little person in a big body. There was this person that used to call me like a little chicken. And it was so, I remember being like, that's how I feel. I feel like a little chicken.
Yes, exactly.
In the world.
Exactly.
You know? But
may I end with a joke?
I'll
answer your question.
I have one quick question. It might be fast.
Okay.
Do you think you're living out your life's work now in educating the next generation?
Absolutely, I am. Absolutely, I am. And I have to tell you, it is one of the greatest privileges of my life. To be able to tell little Lila Beanie who today told her teacher that 100 years ago, under the terms of the 19th Amendment, women got the right to vote.
Yeah.
And under the terms of the Civil Rights Voting Act of 1965,
did she know the years?
People of color. But she's 8, you know, so
right.
as I said, 100 years for her is like the time of the dinosaurs.
But I love that she even knew that. But so you do. That makes me happy that you feel that way.
Absolutely.
What was the joke you wanted to
So this is a joke. There's parents and they have twin boys. They love one kid who's a complete pessimist, and the other kid who's a complete optimist. They're always putting him down. So they go to a therapist, and the therapist says to the parents, do you see what you're doing? You constantly put your optimist down and you constantly build the pessimist up. Now, this is a very, very wealthy family. So the psychiatrist said, Christmas time, I want you to fill the room of the pessimist with toys.
Right.
And I want you to fill the room of the optimist in a corner of the room, horse manure. Okay? So Christmas morning, they go running to see their darling, the pessimist. He's got a mountain of toys behind him. He's opened 2 toys. He's crying, and they're like, well, why are you crying, honey? Well, Mom, Dad, you know, there's no point in opening any of these toys. They're all gonna break. They're all gonna break. Okay? Then they go to the room of the optimist. He's found a shovel, and he's going through the horse shit. And they say, what are you doing? And he says, Mom, Dad, there's so much shit in here. I know there's a pony somewhere. So if we can just look for the pony in the midst of the manure, that's the attitude to have.
I love it. Saeeda, I feel like there might be more of you coming. The people love you. But thank you for talking to me today and sharing your story.
I'm very honored. Thank you, Adel.
Love you.
Thank you.